The first thing I learned about working on an alien station was simple. Don't touch anything. The second thing I learned was even more important. Especially don't touch anyone. Unfortunately for me, I learned the second rule a little too late. 1. The edge of known space. Station Kareth 9 floated at the edge of human exploration, a massive metallic ring orbiting a blue dwarf star. Ships from a dozen civilizations docked there daily, bringing cargo, diplomats, scientists, and occasionally soldiers. Humans were new to the place. Very new, which meant most of us worked the jobs nobody else wanted. My name is Adrian Cole, and my job was maintenance technician. Basically, I fixed broken doors. Not exactly the heroic future humanity had dreamed about when we first reached the stars, but it paid well enough. The real challenge wasn't the work. It was the people, or rather, the aliens. The station hosted species that looked like walking crystals, towering reptilian warriors, beings made partially of liquid, and others that were so strange I wasn't sure which side was the front. Every culture had different rules about personal space, respect, and contact, which meant a simple mistake could turn deadly. Our supervisors drilled one instruction into us over and over. Hands to yourself. I repeated it constantly, like a prayer. Hands to yourself. Hands to yourself. Hands to yourself. And for 3 whole months, I never slipped. Until the day I met her. 2. The woman everyone feared. Her name was Vera. At least, that was the closest human translation. She belonged to the Varkathi, a species known across half the galaxy for their terrifying combat abilities. If a Varkathi warrior showed up somewhere, 2 things were guaranteed. Someone was about to lose a fight, and someone else was about to lose their life. Vera was worse. She wasn't just Varkathi. She was elite. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, with silver-blue skin that shimmered under the station lights. Her long dark hair was braided with thin metal rings, each one a symbol of a victory in battle. Her eyes glowed faintly violet, and at her hip, always at her hip, rested a curved blade that could slice through starship alloy. Most people avoided her. Even other aliens gave her a wide berth. I had seen her before in the Central Market. She moved through the station like a storm cloud, silent, dangerous, impossible to ignore. Naturally, she was the one whose door broke. 3. The work order. My tablet beeped late in the afternoon. Maintenance request, Sector 7A, private quarters. Door malfunction. I groaned. Sector 7A housed high-ranking visitors, which meant trouble. I grabbed my toolkit and headed through the long corridors of the station. The closer I got, the quieter the area became. Finally, I reached the room. The nameplate beside the door flashed in alien script, but my translator converted it instantly. Vera, Varkathi Commander. My stomach dropped. Oh no, I whispered. For a moment, I considered turning around, pretending the request never came through. But the station tracked everything. And if the door was malfunctioning, she might be locked out or worse, locked in. So I knocked. The door slid open instantly, and there she was. 4. First contact. Standing this close to Vera felt like standing next to a wild animal. A very large wild animal. She stared down at me with those glowing violet eyes. Her voice was low and sharp. You are the maintenance worker. It wasn't a question. Yes, ma'am, I said quickly. You reported a door malfunction? Her expression didn't change. The door does not close correctly. I glanced at the mechanism. Yeah, that was broken. Easy fix. Should take about 10 minutes, I said. She stepped aside, allowing me to enter. Inside, the room was surprisingly simple. A bed, a desk, and a weapons rack that held more blades than any one person should reasonably own. I tried not to stare. I knelt beside the door panel and opened the casing. Just a damaged alignment motor. Simple. Easy. Nothing to worry about. For 10 peaceful minutes, everything went perfectly. Until the moment I stood up. 5. The accident. I turned around quickly. Too quickly. And, because she was standing closer than I expected, my hand brushed against her hip. Not intentionally. Not even for a second. But it happened. The reaction was immediate. A blur of movement. The sound of metal sliding free. And suddenly a blade was pressed against my throat. Her eyes blazed. Her voice snapped like thunder. "Do you want to die, human?" My heart stopped. I froze completely. One wrong move, and my head would roll across the floor. I'm sorry. I blurted. It was an accident. Her grip on the blade didn't loosen. Among the Varkathi, touching a warrior's hip was a grave insult. Or a challenge. And worse, that was where they carried their weapons. Meaning my accidental touch could easily be mistaken for an attempt to disarm her, which usually meant execution. The silence stretched. Seconds felt like hours. Finally, she spoke again, colder this time. "You touched me." "Yes." "You knew the rules." "Yes." "And yet you did it." I swear it was an accident. For a long moment she studied my face. Then something strange happened. She tilted her head slightly. Confused. 6. A strange reaction. "You did not reach for my weapon," she said slowly. "No. You did not attempt to attack." "Definitely not." Her eyes narrowed. "And yet your heart races like prey." "Well, there's a sword at my throat." That seemed like a reasonable explanation. For several seconds, she remained perfectly still. Then slowly, she lowered the blade. I nearly collapsed from relief. "You are either extremely foolish," she said, "or extremely honest." Probably both. That earned the smallest hint of amusement in her expression. The first crack in the ice. "You truly touched me by accident?" "Yes." She watched me carefully. Varkathi were known to be exceptional lie detectors. Finally, she slid the blade back into its sheath. "You may live." I let out the breath I'd been holding. "Thank you." Then she asked a question I did not expect. "Why did you not run?" I blinked. There wasn't really time. Her lips twitched again. Almost a smile. 7. The unexpected conversation. Normally, maintenance workers finished a job and left immediately. But she didn't dismiss me. Instead, she studied me with quiet curiosity. "Humans are strange," she said. "That's what everyone tells me. You approached my quarters alone. It was the job. You repaired the door while surrounded by my weapons." I shrugged. "Someone had to fix it." Her gaze sharpened. "Most beings fear Varkathi warriors. Most beings aren't paid hourly." For the first time, she laughed. A deep, sharp sound that echoed through the room. "You are either brave or very desperate. Rent on Earth is expensive." She crossed her arms. "And yet you touched me." I groaned. "Please don't remind me." To my surprise, her expression softened slightly. "In Varkathi culture," she said slowly, "touching a warrior's hip is a declaration." A declaration of what? Her violet eyes locked onto mine. Interest. My brain stalled. "Wait, what?" She stepped closer. "You did not know this?" "No, absolutely not." That explained why she looked confused earlier. Among her people, my accidental touch might have meant something very different. She watched my horrified reaction carefully. Then she laughed again. "You truly did not know." "No, that makes this situation amusing. For you maybe." 8. The warrior's curiosity. Instead of ordering me out, Vera walked to the desk and leaned against it. "Human Adrian," she said. How do you know my name?" "You repaired my door." "Fair point." She continued studying me like I was some kind of puzzle. You are different from most beings on this station. How so? You did not tremble when you entered. I was trembling internally. Ah. She seemed to consider that. Then she asked another unexpected question. Do humans always apologize when threatened with death? Generally, yes. Interesting. She paused. Sit. That sounded less like an invitation and more like a command. I sat. Apparently, I had just become part of the strangest conversation of my life. 9. A dangerous reputation. Over the next several minutes, something surprising happened. We talked about Earth, about the station, about the strange mix of cultures in space. She asked endless questions. Humans fascinated her. You are physically weaker than most species, she said bluntly. Thanks. And yet you expand rapidly across the stars. We're stubborn. That is clear. Eventually, I gathered the courage to ask something myself. Why are you here? Her expression darkened slightly. I serve as a protector. For who? The Varkathi delegation. Right. Of course. Which meant she was essentially the bodyguard for extremely powerful aliens. No wonder everyone feared her. She glanced toward the door I had repaired. You are skilled with machines. I try. You are calm under threat. I try very hard. Her eyes glowed slightly brighter. You are also honest. I shrugged. Lying seemed risky. That was wise. 10. The beginning of something strange. Finally, I stood. Well, doors fixed. I should go before I accidentally insult another alien culture. She watched me walk toward the door. Then she said something that stopped me cold. Return tomorrow. I turned back. For maintenance? No. For conversation. My brain tried to process that. You want me to come back? Yes. Why? She stepped closer again, towering over me. Because, she said calmly, you are the first being on this station who touched me and survived. That wasn't the reassurance she thought it was. And I wished to understand why. I hesitated. This felt like the beginning of something dangerous, but also strangely interesting. All right, I said slowly. I'll come back. Her expression showed faint satisfaction. Good. I stepped into the hallway. The door slid shut behind me. Only then did my legs finally give out. I leaned against the wall and laughed nervously. I had accidentally insulted one of the deadliest warriors in the galaxy. And somehow, she wanted to see me again. I had a feeling my life was about to become very complicated. 11. The human who touched the warrior. Over the next few days, I returned to her quarters. At first, it was just conversation. She asked endless questions about humans, our habits, emotions, relationships. Apparently, Varkathi culture was extremely direct. No small talk. No unnecessary emotion. Strength, honor, and loyalty defined everything. So, humans form bonds easily, she said during one conversation. Sometimes too easily. And touching is common? Very. Her eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Among Varkathi, physical contact is rare. That explains the sword. It was a reasonable response. From your perspective, maybe. She studied me again. You truly fear me. I respect the sword. That earned another rare smile. 12. A growing understanding. Weeks passed. Word quietly spread across the station. The human maintenance worker kept visiting the Varkathi warrior. People began staring when I walked by. Some thought I was insane. Others thought I had a death wish. But inside those quarters, something unexpected was happening. Vera was changing. She laughed more. She asked deeper questions. And sometimes she simply listened. You are strange, Adrian, she said one evening. How so? You treat me like I am not dangerous. You are dangerous. Yes, but you're also a person. She seemed to consider that very carefully. Most beings do not see both. 13. The realization. One evening, as I prepared to leave, she stopped me again. Adrian. Yeah. Her violet eyes held mine. You touched my hip. I groaned. We're still talking about that? In my culture, such an act carries meaning. Yes, you mentioned. And yet, perhaps the accident revealed truth. I blinked. What truth? She stepped closer. Closer than she ever had before. That I am curious about you. My heart began racing again. This time, not from fear. You mean like friends? Her gaze sharpened with amusement. Humans are slow. Hey. She laughed softly. And for the first time since I met her, she reached out and touched my hand. Very gently. No sword. No anger. Just curiosity. 14. The future. Months later, the story of the human who touched the Varkathi warrior became a small legend on Kareth. 9. People whispered about it in the markets, about how the human survived, about how the warrior changed. But the truth was simpler. Sometimes, accidents create connections no one expects. And sometimes, the most dangerous person in the room is simply waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to see them differently. As for me, I still fix doors. But now, whenever someone asks how I met the most feared warrior on the station, I just smile and say the truth. It was an accident, and somewhere behind me, Vera usually laughs. Months passed on Station Kareth, 9, and life slowly fell into a strange rhythm. During the day, I worked maintenance like always, repairing doors, recalibrating cargo lifts, fixing broken air vents. The station never stopped breaking things, and I never stopped fixing them. But every evening, almost without fail, I found myself walking down the quiet corridor toward Sector 7A, toward Vera. At first people stared when they saw me heading there. Then they whispered. Soon the rumors began spreading across the station. The human visits the Varkathi warrior. They speak for hours. She has not threatened him once. Some people thought it was hilarious. Others thought I was insane. A few believed I had somehow earned her protection. But the truth was far simpler. We had become comfortable with each other. The warrior who changed. Vera was still terrifying. Anyone who saw her in the corridors still stepped aside instantly. Her armor gleamed like dark metal. The braided rings in her hair clinked softly when she moved. Her sword still rested at her hip, always within reach. But when I entered her quarters, that terrifying warrior faded. Inside those walls, she was simply Vera. And slowly, I began to see parts of her that no one else ever did. She loved strategy games. She hated sweet human food but secretly enjoyed coffee. She was fascinated by human movies, especially the terrible action ones where heroes survived impossible odds. One evening, halfway through a ridiculous Earth action film, she suddenly said, "Humans exaggerate greatly." Yeah, I admitted. The man has fallen from 3 buildings and continues fighting. That's Hollywood. She shook her head slowly. Your species creates unrealistic expectations. I laughed. Trust me, if I fell from one building, I'd stay down. She studied me carefully for a moment. Then she said something unexpected. I would catch you. The room went quiet. Neither of us said anything for several seconds. Then I cleared my throat. Well, that's reassuring. A dangerous night. But peace on a station like Kareth 9 never lasted long. One night, alarms suddenly blared across the corridors. Red lights flashed. Emergency messages echoed through the station speakers. Security alert. Unauthorized armed vessels approaching docking ring 3. Pirates. The station occasionally attracted them. Most left once they realized how heavily defended the place was. But these ones didn't leave. Explosions shook the outer ring. The station trembled. I was in the maintenance corridor when the first blast rocked the structure. Panels rattled around me. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut across several sections. And suddenly, the hallway lights went dark. Great, I muttered. Just another day fixing things. I grabbed my emergency lamp and started moving toward the power junction. If the pirates damaged the grid, large parts of the station would lose air circulation, which meant people would die long before the pirates even arrived. I was halfway down the corridor when I heard footsteps behind me. Heavy. Fast. I turned. Vera stepped out of the shadows like a storm given form. Her armor was already locked into place. Her violet eyes glowed brighter than I had ever seen them. They have boarded the outer sector, she said. Yeah, I replied nervously. I noticed the explosions. You should not be here. I'm trying to keep the station alive. For a moment she looked ready to argue. Then another explosion echoed through the walls. Her attention shifted instantly. Stay behind the bulkhead doors, she ordered. And you? Her hand rested on the sword at her hip. I will deal with the intruders. Then she turned to leave. But before she could step away, I said something that surprised even me. Hey. She paused. Be careful. She looked back at me, and for just a second, the warrior mask slipped. I always am. Then she vanished down the corridor. The warrior in battle. The next hour was chaos. Security teams rushed through the station. Blaster fire echoed in distant corridors. Explosions rattled the outer hull. I focused on the power grid, repairing damaged relays and stabilizing the systems as fast as I could. But in the back of my mind, one thought kept returning. Vera was out there, fighting, against pirates who were desperate enough to attack one of the most heavily armed stations in the sector. That meant they were either very confident or very stupid. Either way, it meant danger. Finally, the station speakers crackled again. Security alert resolved. Intruders neutralized. Relief flooded through me. The lights returned. The station slowly stabilized. But I still hadn't seen her. And that worried me more than I wanted to admit. The return. Late that night, I walked toward her quarters again. The corridor was quiet. The door slid open as soon as I approached. Vera stood inside. Her armor was scratched. One braid had come loose. And there was a small line of dark blood across her shoulder. But she was alive. You look terrible, I said. She raised an eyebrow. You should see the pirates. I stepped inside. You okay? It is a minor injury. I grabbed a medical kit from the wall. Sit. She tilted her head. That sounded like a command. Just sit. To my surprise, she did. As I cleaned the cut on her shoulder, she watched me carefully. You worry, she said. Yeah. Why? I shrugged. You're my friend. The word hung in the air. Friend. She seemed to consider it carefully. In Varkathi culture, she said slowly, friendship is rare. Well, humans collect them like souvenirs. Her gaze softened slightly. Then perhaps, I have learned something from humans. The moment that changed everything. After I finished bandaging the cut, I stepped back. There. You'll survive. Your medical skill is questionable. Hey, I fix doors. She stood up slowly. For a moment we simply looked at each other. Then she said quietly, when we first met, you touched my hip. Please don't bring that up again. It began everything. I sighed. Worst accident of my life. Her lips curved into a small smile. I disagree. She stepped closer. Very close. close enough that I could see the faint glow inside her violet eyes. In Varkathi tradition, she said, touching a warrior's hip is a declaration. I remember. And you have continued returning. Well, yeah. And you worry for my safety. That's normal. She shook her head gently. Not for most beings. Then slowly she reached down and placed my hand on her hip, exactly where I had accidentally touched her the first time. But this time it wasn't an accident. Her voice was soft but steady. Now it is a declaration. My brain stopped working again. What kind of declaration? Her smile grew slightly. The beginning of something. The Legend of Kareth, 9. Years later, new travelers arriving on Station Kareth, 9 sometimes hear an unusual story about a human maintenance worker, about a feared Varkathi warrior, about a single accidental touch that nearly started a fight and somehow started something else instead. Some people say the story is exaggerated. Others swear they have seen the two walking through the station together, the warrior towering above the human laughing about something, and the warrior smiling in that rare way she only shows to him. As for me, I still fix doors. They still break constantly. But now, whenever someone asks how I managed to survive touching one of the deadliest warriors in the galaxy, I just grin and tell them the truth. It was an accident. And somewhere beside me, Vera always says the same thing.
No.